Alcek. According to Theophanes the Confessor, he was probably the brother of Khan Asparuh and the fifth son of Khan Kubrat, a gastald prince in Samnium, who lived in Gallo Matese, Sepino, Boiano and Isernia in the Molise region in central Italy. Theophanes the Confessor also reports that after the collapse of Old Great Bulgaria, part of the Proto-Bulgarians, led by the youngest son of Khan Kubrat, Alzec, settled in the lands of the Lombard kingdom. Theophanes the Confessor also writes about Khan Kubrat and his sons, about the strength of unity and unification, but also about the weakness of disunity. They break their father's covenant and separate, which ultimately turns out to be disastrous for Old Great Bulgaria. Let's leave the myth aside, and let's see what really happens to the sons of Khan Kubrat. The eldest, Batbayan, Bayan or Besma, as he is called in the namebook of the Bulgarian Khans, remained to rule his father's inheritance. Kotrag, the second son, set off north and settled along the middle and lower reaches of the Volga River, considered the founder of Volga Bulgaria. The third son, Asparuh, set off south and created Danube Bulgaria, and his story is well known to us. The fourth son, Kuba, also set off south and went further than his brother, settling in present-day Macedonia. Information about the youngest son, Alzek, is scarce. Here is what the Frankish Chronicle of Fredegar wrote in Gesta Dagobertii Regis Franca Rum. At that time, the Bulgarian voivode named Alzeco, who had left his people for an unknown reason, peacefully reached Italy and went with his entire army to King Grimwald, promising him that he would serve him and live in his kingdom. Grimwald, sending him to his son Romuald in Barnavento, ordered the latter to determine the places of residence of Alzeco and his people. Romuald received him favorably and assigned them scattered places for settlement, which until then had been deserted, namely, Sepinum, Boiano and Isernia, and other cities in his territory, and Alzeco himself, having changed the name of his dignity, ordered that instead of leader, voivode, dux, he be called gastaldius, governor. From this we understand that Alzek also set off south and settled in present-day Italy, where he received the title of gastald, Italian, gastaldo, governing an administrative district. Paul the Deacon devotes a place in Historia Gentis Langobardorum, chapter 29, to the resettlement of the Proto-Bulgarians in the Barnavento region. Under the leadership of Khan Alcek, they came to Italy to the Lombard king Grimoald, 662–671. Grimoald made Alzek a gastald and sent him to his son Romuald I in Barnavento, where he settled with his people in Sepino, Boiano and Isernia in the Molise region of central Italy. Paul the Deacon, however, does not provide information about where the Alzec Proto-Bulgarians came from. No further information about Khan Alcek has been found. After the collapse of the Roman Empire in the 5th century, these lands were deserted. They were inhabited by the Etruscans, Iapygians, Messapi in earlier times. According to Theophanes the Confessor, before settling there, the Bulgarians led by Alzek passed through Ravenna and Pentipoli. Another Khan, Alcek, Alciocus, Latinized form of Alcek, is also known to science, who was the leader of the Proto-Bulgarians in the Avar Kaganate. The main source for these events is the medieval Chronicle of Fredegar. In 631, a civil war broke out between the Alcek Proto-Bulgarians and the Avar chieftains for the throne of the Kaganate, in which the Proto-Bulgarians were defeated and moved to Bavaria. The Frankish king Dagobert I allowed Alcek to settle with his people in these lands, but gave a secret order to his commanders to kill the Proto-Bulgarians at night. The Bavarians, at that time dependent on the Franks, attacked and killed them on the appointed night. According to the hypothesis of the German historian Heinrich Kunstmann, the skeletal remains of nearly 6,000 unidentified dead found in the 13th century in the cemetery at the monastery of St. Florian in the province of Upper Austria belong precisely to these massacred Proto-Bulgarians. Only 700 out of a total of 9,000 Alzec Proto-Bulgarians managed to escape the massacre and cross the Alps, after which they settled in the Italian lands. It is not possible to say for sure what the relationship is between Alcek and Alciok. According to some historians, they are the same person; according to others, they have a family relationship. It is logical to question the theory that the two are the same person. The events in the Avar Kaganate take place in 631, and the settlement in the Molise region after 662, since Grimwald ruled in the period 662–672. As an aside, if we talk about the youngest son of Kubrat, there is practically no way that he was born before his brother Khan Asparuh, whose birth is around 640. The Lombard king Grimoald made Alzek gastald, governor, and sent him to his son Romuald I in Benevento, where in 668 they settled in Sepino, Boiano and Isernia. This small group of Proto-Bulgarians settled in the Pentapolis between Venice and Ravenna, and later went even further south in Campania, in the area between Bari and Metapontum opposite the island of Sicily. Although they adopted the Italian language, the Proto-Bulgarian nobles retained the consciousness of their national origin. In the Middle Ages, their feudal domains were called Bulgaria, and many of the feudal lords themselves were called Bulgaro and kept this name. One of the most extensive studies on the topic of Alzek and the Bulgarians in Italy was done by Dr. Vincenzo Amico in 1942. Of course, this study cannot be considered completely reliable and truthful. The author himself says that the lack of more in-depth previous works and the general lack of interest in this topic made his work difficult. He is surprised by the fact that no one before him has paid attention to the role of Bulgarian settlers in the formation of the modern Italian nation, the demographic effect and the contribution to agriculture. Dr. Amico speaks of the settlement of Bulgarians in Italy since the 5th century, when Attila seized territories in the northern part of the Apennine Peninsula, but this will not be the focus of this article. Khan Alcek occupies a lower place in the hierarchy than Romuald, but he still remains the leader of his people, achieves military and political patronage, and in addition, administrative autonomy. For some time there was also a spiritual one. The Bulgarians preserved religious traditions, but under the influence of the Lombard, Frankish, and Church feudal lords they gradually adopted Christianity and broke with pagan customs. After their Christianization, Manichaeism and Bogomilism spread among them, heresies well known in our lands. Here is what Vincenzo Amico says about the contribution of the Bulgarians. In the assimilation whirlpool, they, the Bulgarians, repaid themselves with a manifold new elevated dignity, with the giving of new virgin and wild blood, of the physical dynamism and fighting spirit, which they poured into the noble but exhausted arteries and veins of the declining, dejected Italian of the early Middle Ages, thus reviving the old virtue of Roman universality. The Proto-Bulgarians of Alzec settled and founded the cities of Sepinum, Sepino, Bovianum, Boiano, and Isernia in the Molise region. To this day, the toponyms in this Italian region are associated with them. According to Pavel Diakon, in the 8th century they still spoke their own language, although they also used Latin. Here the population has national costumes, some customs, bagpipes and individual words like the Proto-Bulgarians. In the Vicene subsettlement of Campochiaro in 1987, 2007, a large Proto-Bulgarian necropolis with the grave of Alzek was discovered and studied, the finds from which are kept in the museum in the city of Campobasso. The Bulgarian trace in Italy has been preserved to this day. 400 kilometers south of Rome is the town of Celdi, Bulgaria, translated as Bulgarian cells. The cells in the word "celd" come from the Greek monks who were welcomed there by Bulgarian soldiers. The mountain under which the town is located is called Bulgaria. Despite being subjected to infiltration and influence of diverse cultures, the Bulgarians in Italy managed to preserve their way of life. Dr. Amico says that in the mid-20th century in Italy the Bulgarian ethnic group numbered over 3 million people, distributed in over 700 settlements. A symbol of the Bulgarian heritage in the Apennines is the 3-meter monument to Khan Alcek, made by the Bulgarian sculptor Duško Duškov, unveiled on June 8, 2016. The topic of Khan Alcek and the Bulgarian traces in Italy is undoubtedly a fruitful and interesting one, deserving historical consideration and in-depth analysis in the future. This will certainly not be an easy task, since the information and sources are scarce, and those that do exist should not be examined uncritically and considered completely true. But even the information available at the moment could suggest one thing to us: there are no boundaries for Bulgarian culture and spirit. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the World Chronicles channel and give the video a thumbs up in support.